FM, Bol Hyderabad, 90.4 FM Bajao.
Yeah, welcome to Bol Hyderabad, 90.4 FM. I'm your host, Vamsi Krishna, PhD scholar at the Department of Communication, University of Hyderabad. Today we have with us Swati Bakshi, a seasoned media practitioner and academician. Hi Swati, thanks for being here. Yeah, what brings you here at the Department of Communication?
So I am here on conducting a 4-day workshop on podcasting. I'm working with semester 3 students, learning from them, explaining to them certain ideas that I have and clarifying certain doubts, trying to make them understand how to do good recording and maybe later on editing as well. So that's the whole idea of me being here.
Okay, so I could see that you have worked in major media houses like BBC, Doordarshan, Air India. Specifically in the area of radio, right? So, as teaching podcast to the coming journalists, right? How your experience translates in a classroom? I'm just curious about how that process. Yeah.
Okay, so I think practice molds you in a certain way, where when you go to the classroom, you already have answers to many questions. If you actually teaching media practice students, then it makes sense in the sense that if you come from a particular industry, if I'm teaching radio, then my experience is really helpful because I'm not just talking about theory, but I know what I'm talking about and I can answer any question that arises. So in that sense, it's very helpful. As a practitioner, you add value to ideas, to concepts, to theories if you're teaching theory as well. Apart from that, I think practice also makes you understand in a very concrete terms about your audience. So when you know who your audience is, when you're broadcasting, you have to understand your audience. And that experience actually really makes you very clear about connecting with your particular audience. So here I think my students are my audiences. And they really have to understand what I'm trying to communicate. So this is just, I see it as another aspect of being a communicator, not just a teacher where, there is a hierarchical relationship. No. A person from radio really understands that the broadcaster and the listener have to be on the same plane. So that understanding, I think, helps me a lot.
Okay. So, I'm just curious, see in the highly saturated, the digital media, right? So, how do you, find relevance of, communication medium such as radio, right? And what kind of impact this digital ecosystem had it on the basic medium, right? What are the changes that brought in that particular way of communicating?
So, Vamsi, I think your question is actually coming from all the developments that we have seen in the past, I think, this whole decade. In terms of how video has become prominent, and it has taken such a huge, it's a huge shift in our lives as far as our relationship with media is concerned. So, radio definitely has suffered. I would not say that it's the same. The other day, I was discussing this with someone who used to work at All India Radio, and both of us agreed that radio is no longer something that you could immediately say, no, you don't understand the medium, it's still the same. We cannot say that anymore because the situation is not the same anymore, it's different. We are dealing with a different context of communication where visual has taken prominence over audio. Audio was always there, and I think for the longest period of time, radio has been the main medium of mass communication, but that is no longer the case. These days, I think reels are the most common mode of communication as far as our surroundings are concerned and our media environment is concerned. Having said that, I would still say that radio is a very resilient medium, and
Okay.
it it actually morphs into various. It takes a different form every time there is some sort of challenge. You see, there was television. When television came, it became a huge challenge for audio and for radio as well. But then radio survived, and it never actually lost its relevance in that sense of being a mass communication medium of mass communication. But right now the situation is very different. The only thing is that radio has to find a way of being digital and still holding its own ground.
Okay.
There is podcasting, of course, and podcasting is a great challenge. And there is this blurring of boundaries between what is radio, what is podcasting,
Yeah.
who is creating radio and who is creating podcast. So those kind of challenges are there. But then it also shows that your environment is dynamic in which you are operating, and you really have to find ways. And I still believe that radio is resilient and it will find its way. So I'm not hopeless. I would not say that I don't see any hope.
Yeah.
It's just that change that we have to deal with, and we have to find ways of dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to ask you about, you worked with the different industries, right?
Yes.
These are big media houses in their own sense, right? So how they are adapting and how they are keeping alive the radio in their media houses, and how it can be useful for the students to pursue careers in those in those areas. I'm just curious, what is the landscape of resilient media like radio in the mainstream journalism? Yeah.
So I would say that you have to look around how media houses are also trying to grapple with this situation. And almost all media organizations, new and old, are producing podcasts. So
Okay.
all of them have a desk or something, or a small department where 2-3 people work and they produce podcasts. So audio hasn't gone anywhere. It's just that it's still trying to find its own ground where it would just build from in this digital environment where everything has to be digital. There is no analog, there is no life of analog anymore. So in that sense, audio has not gone anywhere because everyone is dealing with podcasts now and trying to understand how to do news podcasting, how to differentiate it with other genres, and those things are happening. All the news organizations, I'm not naming them, but the bigger ones, even the ones that I have worked with, they have also stopped analog use of analog transmitters and equipments, and they are also digital now and doing the similar kind of programming and shows on digital mediums. There is definitely less footfall in that sense of audiences, but they are doing it. And even non-governmental organizations, for that matter,
Yeah.
who have who need to reach out to people, disseminate the kind of work they do, connect with communities, all of them are also using audio for their own purposes. So there are various forms evolving now. There is branded content, there are branded podcasts, there are celebrity podcasts. So that ecosystem has a lot in it. It's just that students would have to find their own, they'll have to position themselves. This is what they want to do. Maybe they want to go into corporate. So they'll have to see if they want to work with audio, how are they going to shape that career? They'll get internships in certain organizations where they would learn a certain kind of work and then move on from there. So if I am graduating in this age and time, I would have to think about news organizations for that matter. So I'll see which news organization is actually interested in doing podcasting. And I would try to get an internship there and build up from there. So that is how it is going to work for everyone. If you don't want to be a journalist, still there are opportunities. Like you could look at non-governmental organizations. You could even look at human rights organizations and people working on environment. There are organizations dedicated to environmental work and they are also doing podcasts.
Yeah.
It's small, but there is opportunity.
Yeah. And when you mentioned about the non-governmental organizations, right, and their use of this medium to reach out to the masses, right? So I mean, I have some limited experience in terms of the community radio, right? And what radio means to the community in the grassroots, in the villages, is very different, right? Is their lifeline in terms of their culture, in terms of their traditional knowledge systems, the way, like almost like their language, the way they live, right? So, like, how do there is so much intimacy between the medium and the people there, right? So, I'm just curious about that. I mean, did you work in that space before, or how do you see that?
I haven't worked as a field worker, but I have been doing workshops for audio training, in the sense that how to create content, how to understand your audience, and there is something called strategic communication, where you understand your target audience really closely, and then you do not do this top-down model of communication, but ground-up model of communication, where you're trying to understand what people really need to know, what are the needs of the community, and then you build programming around it. So those kind of things I have been engaged with, where so because I come from an institute of mass communication, like it's a very not very old, but I would say it has been there for a long time now, and there are people passed out of it. So I have people around who are working with various organizations. So those kind of networks help me to get in touch with people if they need training. And that communication training has been part of my work portfolio as well. But Vamsi, you mentioned about your own work, and I'm also curious here to know about your experience, because you work directly with communities.
Yes.
So what is your impression of radio and communities, the relationship?
Yeah, I went for a field work, so it was for a project, and it was located in the rural parts of Madhya Pradesh. It's like in the, there is no any other way of communication apart from the radio, which is stable. All the other communication mediums, like it can be a television, it can be a mobile, these are all unreliable, right? You don't get in those parts. So radio is the only medium through which they communicate. And the community radio is operating in that area, and when we are talking to the people, that is they were saying it is very intimate to them. They really want to protect the community radio. They want to sustain that, and by indirectly they are saying they just sustain their lifestyle, they sustain their language, they sustain their culture, the way they eat, the way they dress, their songs, their stories. This thing is the community radio is preserving all these things and passing on to the further generation. So I was like very surprised, growing up with the smartphone and in an urban space, and when you go there and you just see a medium like radio is sustaining the whole lifestyle out there, right? It was like a revelation for me in that sense. And so whenever radio that comes to, I mean, whenever somebody says radio, that comes to my mind. I mean, I don't much relate to the urban FM channels and these things which are rarely about mostly about entertainment and everything.
Yeah, so that's the reason, and I really find it baffling when people say radio has lost its relevance, because maybe for people who are watching reels, 10,000 reels throughout the day and not retaining anything out of it, for them it's not relevant.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people it's still relevant, because they are not like other digital devices. Probably they're using them, but first of all, they are not able to access maybe internet the way I'm able to access in a city, in an urban area. And people in, say, peri-urban areas or villages are not doing the same thing that I'm doing throughout the day. Maybe there are people doing it, but this is a huge country.
Yeah.
And you cannot generalize things like that. So there are people who probably would not be relating to this medium in the manner other people are. Like two of us also. So I relate to radio in a different manner, and you relate to radio in a different manner. But both of us are similar in thinking that it is still relevant to people. So I really think that maybe radio's role would probably change. The way people would receive it would probably change. Even for community radios, I think. Maybe there would be more dependence on apps, as in when community radios are able to get on apps. But those changes would come. But does that mean radio has gone out of relevance? I do not think so.
No, I mean, when you're talking about that, I mean, something came to my mind. Basically, there is this concept called hot and cool medium by Marshall McLuhan, right? So, I mean, see, as a millennial or this Gen Z, and we want to, like, we are so much onto the smartphone, and we get a lot of fatigue, right? So we want to go to some medium which is not that hot, okay? Like,
and not demanding. Hot things are always demanding.
So
most of the time.
No, but after some time you get like, we want digital detox, and there is a lot of discourse happening using dumb phones. It's called dumb phone revolution.
People are replacing them.
Yeah. It's called dumb phone revolution, where we want to dumb down our smartphones. We install some app which basically don't let us use smartphone for more than some time, and block some apps so that we don't use that much. So our screen time will be less, right? So in a way that I'm kind of hopeful that someday this medium become more popular among this generation, where you don't have to deal with in order to consume information, you don't need to engage that much with the visual, and maybe it gets its relevance. It's a thought.
Probably we'll see that day when this fatigue actually sets in, and it reaches that extent when everyone just says, okay, I'm going back to audio.
Yes, at least, I mean, in order to consume information, like in order to absorb information, you don't need to have the visual all the time. And
there are studies like you're mentioning, people watching reels throughout the day and spending a lot of time on reels. There is a lot of disconnection in terms of how you retain information. Your mind is not able to retain anything, because you're not actually consuming anything. It's just some sort of scrolling. And you move on from one thing to another in 1 second, and you see 10,000 reels like that. So what is your mind going through? What are you doing with your mind?
That's what I was talking about.
Those questions are really important for us.
I mean, I was thinking that will lead to, the more prominence in, the medium like radio, right?
Let's hope so. The people would, in media, because, the moment you say that you worked in radio, there is always a smile. I've never seen anyone not becoming curious the moment you say that, you've spent your entire life as a radio broadcaster. And everyone is like, really? So it's like, because not everyone works with radio. Not everyone gets to work with radio. It has been an industry where celebrities were made. The first, probably, a professional sort of environment in which celebrities were made, because it was such a magical medium of voice. You do not see the person, but you get to know the personality through their voices, through how they talk, the pauses that they take. So that is how people remember radio presenters and whosoever comes on radio to give presentations and all. So radio has been one remarkable medium, and I think gradually we will reach at that point in few years' time that we realize we still need radio. Those people who are saying that it's not relevant.
I mean, I'm remembering that song from Queen. There is a song about Radio Gaga. I mean, it's a title, Radio Gaga. It's talk about We Still Love You Radio. So, I think we should play during this.
Maybe,
So it's so good. I mean, I keep listening to that, So I think technically this is my first time doing a podcast.
Oh, wow.
And I was fumbling a bit in the beginning.
That's
but I think
good, actually. Nervous energy.
Yes. So, but after some time I forgot there is a mic, and it's kind of, I liked it. I think I can do it more often. So
we added another fan audio.
I think so. And I just want to ask, like, how do you feel sitting on the other side of the table? I mean, getting some amateur questions from a amateur podcaster, So,
No, it's fun and it's learning as well. You constantly learn whenever you sit to record something. it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
It's not, because you're in a different mental space. You're working with your body as well. See, you have to take care of everything: your breath, your mental state, your language. You can fumble anytime. Even after 20 years of broadcasting, you can fumble. So that consciousness has to be there. But yes, to be questioned is not always very comfortable, because you have to sound in a certain manner that you make sense.
Yeah.
You cannot be nonsense. That's a big responsibility, not to lose sense
Yes.
in this world anymore. So I think it's a big responsibility when you are broadcasting, and even bigger when you're not and when you're talking about it, because you're shaping that discourse all the time. So I think you never lose that position of, as an advocate of a medium. So that responsibility always stays. The way you talk about it, the way you argue, give logics. So that is little terrifying, that probably the other person who's listening to you doesn't agree with you, and you still have to make your point and not sound boastful or delusional at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a challenge.
And also, how do you feel about this department? Like, we have a dedicated radio here, student radio basically. A lot of students engage with it. Like, how do you feel like being in a space like this where you can see radio all the time? So
Yes, I think it's very important, because once you have seen it already in your department, then it's not something very new to you, and you're always nervous around an audio setup that it looks like some giant who you don't know and you haven't seen in your life. So being around radio is a great learning experience, I think. Having a studio is a great thing. When you're doing a program, you're writing for it, you're thinking about it, you're engaging with your entire community, I think, because you're broadcasting for a community and you understand that community. So it's a very helpful experience for someone who wants to get into practice. For them as well, and people who are doing theory, who are not doing media practice, for them also to get some experience here only, even if they're not going to do it later on, and they take up maybe PhDs in theory only, not in practice, because you can do PhD which is practice based in the sense that it talks about certain practice and produce something out of it as well. So that possibility is there now. Earlier it wasn't like that, but now the field is opened up, so that possibility is also there. So I think because the department has 2 degrees where people study media practice and study media theory as well, so for both those groups this is a great asset.
Yeah, I think apart from the career wise, I think for me personally, I think it's giving me a lot of high, sitting and talking. It reminds me of those moments where you sit with your friends, and you talk for hours and hours, and you get that, that feeling, right? So I'm getting that kind of feeling,
That's great.
Yeah,
that's what radio. And see, we are not even doing live broadcasting. Can you imagine the fun and the challenge of doing live broadcasting? I mean, I don't think so. I have done television broadcasting as well, and we did live bulletins for 3 hours, 4 hours when there was something going on and some important event was happening and all. So we were doing television. I've done it myself. But I always went back to radio. I left television for radio, because that kind of, I don't know, that excitement of, writing something for radio without this aid of visuals that someone else would bring and edit probably. And you're only reading something out of it. So that is a different experience. I'm not saying that it's not a challenge, but writing for radio will always remain a greater challenge, because you do not have anything else. You've just spoken words and your voice. So the way you use your pauses is politics as well, and it's how your voice is cultured. We call it voice culture, and how you culture your voice through pauses, through modulation. That part is I think it's mastery and artistry, both.
I think this would be the last pestering question. I just want to know from you, some recommendation about podcast where we students can like revive that the love we had for the radio.
For audio.
So, yeah.
I think a good place would be to explore BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds, because BBC Sounds has this whole library of podcasts, and because it's a huge organization and all the genres like sports, entertainment, history, politics, and environment, technology, science, and they have many properties that one should look at. So that is a place to start from, I would say. And then there are other places if you want to understand what is going on with your world. So I think The Economist is also a good place because their podcasts are very neatly written and presented. So those places, they are my go-to places actually. So I would recommend that. And in Indian space as well, there are podcasters like The Seen and the Unseen is one podcast by Amit Verma. It's a good place actually because they are long conversations, and if one wants to understand certain concepts, ideas, developments in certain fields, and Amit Verma also covers a lot of areas from literature to economics and environment. I have listened to a couple of his episodes, and he talks about feminism in various ways with various people, activists, writers. So that is also a great podcast.
Yeah. And one last question, and this is very personal. When I was a kid, I used to listen to the news bulletin in the early morning, okay? And that habit I developed watching my father doing that, right? So, and it's kind of sad nowadays, right? He doesn't know how to, listen to that. I mean, he doesn't know avenues where you get a daily, the news bulletins, or as these smartphones that are coming these days, they just remove the radio from the smartphone, right? I just want to know, like, is there any like a news bulletin that you can hear, like, which produces?
So for that matter, if he's still interested in All India Radio News,
All India Radio,
yeah.
okay.
So then News on Air is their website,
okay,
where their bulletins are streamed.
Okay.
It's called News on Air.
Okay.
And all their bulletins are streamed there. I'm not sure, honestly, because we have shifted to digital platforms in the sense that we listen to stuff from websites. But radio, I think certain people I know on Facebook who are connected with me, they still listen to radios, and they're still getting receptions in their villages, because AM reception has suffered a lot for a very long time. AM reception is no longer that great it used to be. So digital is probably, websites is probably the place where one can listen to without disruptions.
Okay, that
and
would be.
They're streamed online, yes.
Okay, yeah, there might be apps also that
There
Air
is an
India.
app.
Oh,
There is an
cool,
app,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. I think when I go home, I'll install that
can-
in my
yeah.
father's smartphone, so
would
that
be
he can listen to
wonderful.
radio.
And you can record his reaction.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Swati, for your time, and it was great listening to you. And I think I fell in love with radio again. I think I'll.
Thank you, Vamsi, and I'm glad to know about your work.
Yeah.
It's really intriguing, and I would know more about it later on once you are Dr. Vamsi Krishna. Thank you so much for having me.